So the theme for the session today is on sustainability, and sustainability has become more important than ever before. But why now? Why should we act on sustainability now? What is it that has changed over the past few years that is making industry participants from around the world actively think about this subject, not just in terms of boardroom discussions, but actual actions on ground? The first is a very dynamic delivery landscape. Everything is now moving towards home deliveries. Package sizes are shrinking further and further. There are faster inventory turns, which essentially means the lot sizes are reducing, and essentially goods are traveling more and more miles before they get into the hands of the end customer, also resulting in excessive packaging being used. All these different factors are kind of coming together right now and will only increase over the next few years, which makes it imperative for industry participants around the world to think, plan, and act when it comes to sustainability. Essentially, when we look at sustainability, at Shipsy, we see four drivers, but one common goal of essentially how we can reduce carbon footprint and drive sustainability in logistics. Now, what are these drivers that we're seeing? Around the world, consumers are becoming more and more knowledgeable, and they're demanding from brands a larger focus when it comes to sustainability. Whether it be receiving shipments, at a common time at their homes to reduce packaging, right? Or eco-friendly packaging. There is a lot of push coming from consumers to really see how the brands that they trust are driving sustainability. The second major factor, and perhaps extremely critical, is driving real economic benefits as well through sustainability. Electric vehicles and other modes of transportation, they are actually reducing costs in a big way, right? So a large driver for sustainability is actually also the pure economic cost saving related benefits that industry participants and brands around the world are seeing. The third driver that we're seeing is more around the brand conscience. What do brands stand for? Is there something more than just selling products or selling goods? Are brands standing for something bigger than that? And that's essentially where we're seeing a lot of brands around the world actually look at sustainability. Last but not the least is potential future regulations. That's probably not a big driver right now, but as we move over the years, in the next 5 to 7 to 10 years, with countries around the world taking a pledge to reduce carbon footprint, we do see this percolating to enterprises and corporates around the world. In terms of the road to sustainability, we see four key pillars. So the first is ethical sourcing, essentially how we can source goods in a more ethical manner, more sustainable warehousing, eco-friendly packaging, and transport optimization. Diving a little deeper when it comes to driving sustainability in transport, we essentially see one key metric as the biggest driver to help sustainability, which is the distance traveled per package. And essentially, when we look at this single metric to drive sustainability, there are two key aspects to this. The first is how can we actually reduce the total distance traveled, and the second is how we can ensure that whatever distance is being traveled by a package is done using eco-friendly or green delivery modes, right? So making the miles greener, right? When it comes to reducing the distance travel per package, right, there are multiple action items that industry participants are looking at. The first is how can they do a more efficient territory optimization and a territory planning, right? How can they plan their resources such that they can serve the demand in an optimal manner and cover geographies in an optimal manner. The second is during a daily route, how they can plan the routes more efficiently such that the vehicle capacity utilization increases and the number of assets or the number of vehicles required to do the same number of deliveries decreases. The third is more of dynamic order batching. So even when it comes to 30-minute or 20-minute or 10-minute deliveries, how can we still push towards a dynamic automated order batching? And the last is route optimization, which is to say that given a planned route, how can we sequence the stops in such a way that the total distance traveled reduces? In terms of making the deliveries greener, right? The first is we're seeing people prioritize electric vehicles, right? The second is we're kind of seeing how bicycles can be used for shorter distances. The third is we're seeing increasingly, brands choosing carriers with more sustainable fuel usage practices. And the last is how we can drive a better communication between the drivers and the end customers to drive lesser number of attempts per successful delivery, which in turn reduces the distance traveled and makes them greener. So these are some of the key trends that we're seeing and key action items that we're seeing industry participants take up as they go on the journey for driving sustainability in transportation. Importantly, we can't improve what we can't measure, right? And that's where the carbon footprint measurement comes in. Uh, Even recently, at Shipsy, we have launched, an interface for brands to actually measure the carbon footprint for all of their shipments across the multiple modes, and to really see and measure, what is it from a carbon emission standpoint that logistics is contributing to. And it's extremely critical that while we look at metrics, indicative metrics like distance travel, we should actually measure the carbon footprint. More so, we're seeing in terms of brand conscience, we're seeing trends where potentially in the future, we could probably have, just like we have ingredients of food, we probably have carbon footprint of the transportation. Right. So many interesting trends, but the center of it all is really measuring it accurately so that we can improve the outcomes. Another thing that we're seeing is more of strategic planning and decision intelligence for strategic planning, right? Essentially, where all of these different factors kind of come in. So, and whether we're planning, where to place the next warehouse or how to plan the resources or delivery drivers to make deliveries, right? All of this really comes into the picture with data, and seeing how historic data, overall industry data can really help drive this. Again, happy to state that at Shipsy we've launched Shipsy BI, one of the products to actually drive this. But essentially, we're seeing globally, companies really using a lot of this data for not just real-time decision making, but also longer term strategic planning. Lastly, some of the trends that we're seeing are improved, 3PL orchestration, which is where, again, when it comes to brands and logistics companies collaborating, we're seeing increasingly, companies look at not, cost and SLA optimization is definitely a key factor, but things, objective functions like carbon footprint minimization, how the allocation engine can actually have factors like this. And of course, dynamic SLA adherence based allocation practices to ensure that the right delivery partners are chosen. So overall, there's a number of factors that are contributing to this. Companies around are getting more and more aware when it comes to seeing how they can drive sustainability, and not just limiting it to boardroom discussions, but converting it into actions, technology, and products that can help them drive this in day-to-day operations and also help with longer term strategic planning. Thank you very much.